This is Lily. It's my birthday. Welcome to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Here's your host, Jake Riley.
All right. Thanks very much to Mari's lovely daughter, Lily. She just had a birthday, and for the longest time, she's been wanting to do an intro for us. And, of course, now the 10-year-old wants to do one as well, so I'm sure we'll have one of the boy. But Lily just celebrated her birthday, and thank you very much, Lily. You did a really good job on that. All right, let's take a look at some space weather conditions. Our solar wind speeds are sitting at 485 even kilometers per second, with a density of also 6.0. Taking a look at our sun, that's right, no sunspots once again. We are now 16 straight days and 1 day away from that 104 mark that 2017 yielded for the whole entire year, as we are just halfway through the year already, and we are looking at tying last year's totals here just on July 13th. Happy Friday the 13th, guys. KP indices sitting at 1 with a 24-hour max of 2. And here is our SDO. This is the coronal hole they were talking about. Solar wind flowing from this coronal hole could reach Earth on July 15th. It's the next couple days. Let's take a look at the SDO in motion. There's that coronal hole. Again, not really super big. Probably looking at coronal wind speeds, solar wind speeds just a little bit above 500, if that. But nothing huge, nothing to be worried about as far as any kind of elevated geomagnetic activity. And let's take a look at our TSI for July 4th. On Independence Day, we had a reading of 1360.6864. Again, trending down towards that lower part of the 6 value. The TSI just really hasn't moved that much at all over the last several months, but we continue to give that number just so you are aware. And take a look at the 6.4 earthquake that hits Vanuatu at an intermediate depth. It says here, according to the USGS, the epicenter was located about 45.2 miles of Izangle, a population of 1,437. There was about 36,000 people living within 62 miles. Some 88,000 are estimated have felt light shaking. Says here it came first with a deep rumbling noise, followed by a jolt, a quick and sharp. Then immediately a different movement came, slow, side to side, shaking, lasting more than 10 seconds. Our dogs were barking, alarmed, looking for an exit. Nothing fell, just the lights were swinging. One person from Port Villa residence located about 94 miles from the epicenter said in a testimony submitted to the EMSC. It seemed to come in two distinct waves very close to one another. The Port Villa residents reported. USGS has issued a green alert for shaking-related fatalities and economic losses. There's a low likelihood of casualties and damage, in other words. Take a look at all the statistics. Link will be in the description. New eruptive activity at Nishino-Shima volcano in Japan. Nishino-Shima, I should say. The JMA reports a bright spot emerging in the Himawari 8 imagery at Nishino-Shima on July 12th. In addition, a brown smoke was seen rising from the near crater around 12:24 JST on July 12th as well. According to the JMA, the surface temperature at Nishino-Shima remains unchanged, and it seems that lava has not reached the surface. Take a look at these imagery here. Although the volcano is far from the mainland, the agency warned that volcanic material could reach distances around 1,600 feet from the crater and advised caution. The last known eruption of this volcano took place in August of 2017, which had a VEI of 2. And we have mudslides. This was for July 12th, a couple days old, but it still wanted to report on it. Mudslide destroys 300 homes, claims at least 10 lives in Afghanistan. This is due to Snow melting, triggering landslides, and destroying nearly 300 homes in northeastern Afghanistan on Wednesday night, July 11th, 2018, killing at least 10 people. This area is known for its snow-capped peaks. Reading this here, it was a sudden. This region, though, was concerned about the potential dangers of this landslide because of the recently how the temperatures have been warming quite frequently. Here's another report here. 5 people have been killed and 400 homes destroyed due to floods and the mountain slide. Says here, somebody shouted flood and I ran away with my family to higher ground. One of the residents told the AFP, adding that people started firing weapons into the air to warn others about the flood. You know, and this just goes to show here, folks. I mean, we look at the satellite map here in the region that we're in, and in the mountains. Doesn't look like a very modernized region. And yet these folks were able to pass along the message to minimize the fatalities. They lost 10 people and over 400 homes were destroyed. I would say that's a remarkable number. Now, it's possible that the death toll will rise a little bit more, but the point I'm trying to make is that during the grand solar minimum, a lot of things that we rely on, especially if we're in a situation where the grid goes down, or because of an EMP or CME or something of that, or just a man-made EMP, who knows? How are you going to be able to communicate from village to village? And this is a clear example of instincts and proper training. So this is something that we can, take out of the playbook here for communication without cell phones, without telegraphing. These folks were firing weapons. People in the distance knew what that meant, and it's that quick thinking that probably saved a lot of lives and warned about the floods coming. So I'll leave the link in the description. And new fissure eruption at Piton de la Fournaise Reunion. Say that real fast 5 times. Basically, this is the eastern side of Reunion Island in the Indian Ocean. This is the 3rd eruption this year. The 2 previous took place in April of 2018. This alert is at a 2 of 2. The eruption began at 1:30 UTC on July 13 after gradually increasing seismicity registered since 2200 UTC on July 12th. According to the Piton de la Fournaise Volcano Observatory, 4 fissures approximately 0.62 miles long opened on the northern flank of the volcano inside the center of the caldera. Here is some aerial image of the fissures breaking open. A lot reminiscent to what we've seen in Kilauea, except we don't see these being spewed into the air unless we have better motion video. Let's see what we got here. Again, I always do this without looking at it before the show. Yeah, I don't see the motion that we have from Kilauea. Nevertheless, it's very interesting, and observation is very keen at this point, as this will continue to increase. Volcano eruptions, earthquakes, we've already seen an uptick in those, and we're not even at year 0 yet of the grand solar minimum. And I think Henrik and I will discuss that a little bit more, about solutions, about what to do in certain situations. I asked a question the other day to these guys about how long they've been gardening, because some of their pride really comes through in their work when you see the way things are set up and how outside the box these guys are when it comes to gardening and how to get things set up and how to get things going. So Saturday night's discussion should be interesting with Henrik nonetheless. Lately we've been doing a lot of reporting on the grand solar minimum. We do have an interview that we're still working on producing with Per Strandberg, but we really haven't had a lot of time to talk and think outside the box like we'd have in the past with Ralph Whittier and David Dilley and others that we have interviewed on this channel. So it'll be kind of nice to have a topic with Henrik tomorrow at 6:30 Eastern Time, and basically we're going to talk about what are some of the solutions that we can look forward to in an event of an EMP or a solar flare wiping things out for a month, 7 months, 7 years, who knows? But this should be an interesting topic. Anyway, the link for this article will be in the description. Thanks to the watchers providing excellent content as always. I'd have to imagine that might have been a little bit enhanced. Nonetheless, still a beautiful sight. And eruptions intensify off a scale seismicity at Anak Krakatau. I think we said Krakatau. Anak Krakatau in Indonesia. This explosive activity in Anak Krakatau in Indonesia continues, and its seismicity is going reportedly off the scale. Krakatau is going crazy. 100 times explosion a day, very loud, could be heard until Kurita, 26 miles away. I'm going to play a little bit of this video here. I was watching this before and just can't imagine being the guy that's actually in this office right now. I mean, off the charts. We've been talking about this volcano here off and on. It's making its way through the headlines. We're starting to see a bright glow from the eruption. The coast of Java, 31 miles away. I think we got somewhere around 30 to 34 volcanoes active right now, with more waking up, it seems like, every day. And checking out what's up with that. Why climate change seems to have faded from the news. And this is one of those articles I'm kind of go through really quickly with you guys. The failure of atmospheric warmed in accordance with the alarmist predictions is making it harder and harder to come up with a bona fide story that can scare you. In a post a few days ago, I noted the whole climate issue seems to have mostly disappeared from the news lately. It says here, commenter Nice Guy Eddie responded by giving me a link to the Washington Post article. Red hot planet, all-time heat records have been set all over the world during the past week. Now he goes on to talk about, this. We've covered this as well. 3, I think, supposed all-time record temperatures have been debunked. But it goes on to saying, first, some basic background. You need to develop an appropriate bullshit radar on this subject. If you follow climate or weather information even a little, you will already know that on any given day, somewhere in the world, some weather station, or more likely multiple stations, is recording an all-time high temperature for that particular day in question, while some of the other weather stations, or maybe multiple stations, is recording an all-time low. It follows the fact that multiple all-time records were set during the course of a week tells you nothing about climate change. There could have been even more all-time lows, and overall average could have gone down no matter how many all-time highs were recorded. Any reader of intelligence whatsoever will immediately be asking, don't just tell me about all-time highs, but tell me what is the overall picture. How many all-time lows were there? What is happening with the average temperature? You will not be surprised to learn that SameNow does not provide, that's the name of the guy that wrote that article, does not provide the answers to those questions. In other words, his article is intended to provide useful information to the intelligent reader, but rather to propagandize those lacking in either basic background information or critical thinking ability, or both. There's an obvious answer for that source. He refers to Dr. Roy Spencer. He also talks about how we have cooled since 2016. I believe the peak was a 0.88. I could be wrong. It might be a 0.86 back in February of 2016. But we have cooled 0.65 degrees since 2016. In fact, last year this time, June's temperature anomaly came in at 0.22 last summer. And this summer it's down to 0.21. Very slight. And we talked about how minute that this temperature drop was. Nonetheless, it is a decline. But it's still fun to look at what Same Now claims for his all-time highs to see how real they are, whether they are dealing with more of the usual fake news. This gets pretty bad. It says here, as you can see, the failure of atmosphere to warm in accordance with alarmist predictions is making it harder and harder to come up with bona fide story that can scare you. They are reduced to cherry picking some unrepresentative data points and leaving out all the relative context. It's no wonder the reporting on this is becoming increasingly scarce. For you, the moral of the story is, if you want to keep some real information as to whether the world is warming or cooling, and by how much, skip the propaganda at various providers and go with the UAH, Lower Troposphere Satellite Record. It is available in the form at the top of this post at drroyspencer.com, updated monthly. And we all know how much I love that website, and it's the truth. The guy is about natural cycles. He's not on team cooling. He's not on team warming. He is on team truth. And I believe that this graph, for a lot of folks that are here right now, see the same thing that I see, and see the same thing that Dr. Roy Spencer sees, and as well as this person who wrote this article, that we are cooling. And the longer this takes, the more time we go through. This is where we start to see those declinations here in these graphs. It takes months. I remember when I first started really researching this in late 2016, about September of 2016. And, we had that big peak in February. So it was still relatively close to that temperature reading that it was possible to see another spike that gets close to that. So, we had to be, or I had to be kind of skeptical about this in the beginning. But now, being on this for almost 2 years now, and I've getting to see a little bit more data coming in, now we're finally starting to see a little bit more results. And this guy's right. Forget about the propaganda. Go to this website. We'll live by this. If it goes up, it goes up. We'll report that. I've trusted this source from day one. I will continue to. His reporting is very accurate, and he's also agrees with thousands of scientists around the world that CO2 is not a pollutant, that CO2 is a benefactor to our planet. And I saw lots of interesting articles today about CO2, and there's a few papers out there. There's one I want to digest, but I want to give a shout out to Penelope Copeland, who is a moderator for one of our Facebook pages, and she does a great job of posting articles, not YouTube videos, but tons of articles. I've seen many studies, many papers that she posts just on her personal not just her groups, but her personal page. This is a very important topic to her. So just wanted to announce her out there. Thank you for jumping on board. We appreciate what you do so far as part of our GSM researchers group. The group is growing, in my opinion, and we got some smart people involved. So again, thank you for jumping on board. And I believe it was her that I saw a paper that was talking about some of these CO2 models that can't produce the carbon-14 data. And even the people that authored these papers even admitted that that was disappointing, that they could not replicate carbon-14 data with their current models with CO2, talking about CO2 being greenhouse gases and causing warming. So it seems like every day I come across another link, another PDF, and this is just common sense reporting. I brought this story to you guys tonight because this author is right. Just go here. If you get tired of hearing me or anybody else in the community ramble on about the politics of the climate and everything else, absolutely go check this out. This is the most important thing that we watch besides sunspots. And of course now the SST in the Atlantic, which in some cases we're seeing some warming, but you know, it's July. It's supposed to do that. Not a lot though. And another article, conditions for formation of super El Niños determined. I thought this was very important. I wanted to mention it. University of AZU team has identified 2 distinct Indo-Pacific processes shaping the unique features and extraordinary ferocity of a super El Niño. A systematic analysis of these processes and their interactions will improve forecasts of the elusive super El Niños, the researchers claim. Until recently, scientists believed that climate and weather processes operating within the Pacific Ocean could explain the occurrence of super El Niños. The infamously failed prediction of a super El Niño event in 2014 had its root in these assumptions. To unveil mechanisms of super El Niños, Hamid and his colleagues conducted computational simulations that recreated selected Pacific Ocean processes involved the generation of El Niños. To their surprise, they discovered a mechanism embedded within Pacific Ocean which prevented sea surface temperatures in the far eastern Pacific rising too far above normal. And it goes on a little bit more here, talking extremely warm sea surface temperatures are a notable feature in the super El Niños that occurred in 72, 82, and 97. The fact that the Pacific Ocean processes responsible for generating regular El Niños could not explain this key signature of super El Niños came as a big shock, according to the co-author of this study. Noting that the years of super El Niños co-occurred with Indian Ocean dipole events, a phenomenon similar to El Niño, but generated by processes inherent to the Indian Ocean. The researchers explored possible mechanisms linking both phenomena. They found that while Pacific processes are needed to initiate an El Niños, it was the extra energy generated by the Indian Ocean dipole and transferred to the Pacific through atmospheric pathways, which eventually transformed the El Niño into a super El Niño event. And the model for the super El Niños is published in the link below at nature.com. But I found this interesting and just kind of wanted to point this out to everyone today. Link will be in the description. And here is an article that was brought to me by Rob a couple days ago. Yesterday we had some other commitments to obtain, but I wanted to talk about this the other day. Instead, I'm getting a chance to speak on it now. And the reason why is that the title alone has me intrigued. Cosmic ray mystery finally cracked thanks to supermassive black hole beaming energy straight at Earth. Now, there is a lot of debate in the community of the Grand Solar Minimum, electric universe as well, about the existence of black holes. And I found it very interesting. This guy's article talks about how this happened through what they call, it was a messenger type situation. Anyway, I'll give you the lowdown. After a century, we finally found a source of the cosmic rays. University of Wisconsin physics and principal investigator of the Ice Cube Neutrino Observatory. But what is equally as exciting is the way we found it. On September 22nd, the Ice Cube detector at the South Pole spotted a particle called a neutrino with an incredible amount of energy, 290 tera electron volts, or more than 290,000 times the energy of proton at rest, and tens of times more energetic than protons at the Large Hadron Caldera. The detector computers calculated that there were neutrino came from and sent the coordinates and a message to astronomers around the world. 6 days later, the Earth orbiting Fermi Large Area telescope reported that a blazar called TXS 0506 plus 0.56, 4 billion light years away, was in the same spot, according to the paper published today in Science. A bright black hole at the center of a galaxy was eating up dust surrounding it and spitting out high-energy jets of particles and light in our direction. Other telescopes continued looking to get more detail. Now, we know that the discovery of cosmic rays over 100 years ago, Austrian physicist Victor Hess realized that there's more radiation higher up in the atmosphere where particles slam the Earth from outer space. Sure, we get radiation from the sun and cosmic rays from supernova, but physicists couldn't figure out what sent the highest energy particles, the protons in the entire atomic nuclei. These could have energies higher than 1020 electron volts, which, well, that's a lot, according to this author. But I find it interesting where they're coming from by a and this is an area that I don't have a whole lot of knowledge on, but I find this article very interesting because I know the controversy that surrounds black holes. So not only in my mind are they confirming where cosmic rays, the most highest energetic cosmic rays, come from, but also confirming the existence of black holes in this particular article. So I'm going to continue to follow this particular writer as he wrote a follow-up article to this just hours after the release of this announcement. And this is an artist's rendition, but a little bit more enhanced of what they saw. I'm sure it wasn't quite as bright there, but here they were looking at auroras and they spotted something, sent out kind of like a text message to astronomers around the world, and made the discovery today where these super high energetic cosmic rays are coming from. Lost summer for Greenland, record late snowpack lingering into July, a big shock. But the record cold snow blamed, of course, on climate change. This year broke all records. That's a quote. I'm not going to go word for word on this. This gentleman here covers the breeding seasons of shorebirds since 2003. In quotes, he says the tundra was 100% covered in snow, and it was very deep layer, estimating an average depth of about 1 meter. It was a big shock to see the place like that, he added. This year broke all records. I know my literature about the Arctic shorebirds very well, and I have never come across something like this. Now, he's not going to talk about how disastrous the incident will affect the overall populations of these shorebird species, but given the scale this is happening, the way it's happening, he says, I do expect this will have large consequences. He estimates the record late snowmelt impacted half of the global breeding area for sanderlings, red knots, and I believe this would be ruddy turnstones. But again, another article talking about record cold, record snow, record flooding. Never seen this before. You know, I'm not going to make a big deal about this lost summer for Greenland, but for all you out there who believe that Greenland is warming and that its glacier is melting at an alarming rate, when this guy here is just a researcher of a breeding of a bird. He's been doing it now for 15 years. Nearly not long enough to say, you know, this is unprecedented event. I'm sure it could have happened, but, you know, he's quoted saying this year broke all records. I'm just trying to put this together in my head because, you know, even though I read an article where we are seeing less about global warming, when they do pop these headline stories like the one that Washington Post posted last week about these record hot temperatures, people don't understand that Washington Post is like junk food for the brain. And those headlines stick in people's heads. So if they're doing a Google News search, record heat, boom, there it is. And people will automatically remember that article from the Washington Post. Oh yeah, I read that. I saw the headline, record heat everywhere. Wow, global warming. So a big kudos this week to Climate Depot, Mark Morano. He also debunked a few other things this week. He was once again on Fox Business. Anthony Watts at What's Up With That for showing off all of these weather stations that are predicting or telling us these all-time record highs and pointing out some very troubling concerns about the way we record our record all-time temperatures. Today, Mari and I drove by a weather station on a 6-lane highway around a bunch of asphalt. So you had the heating of the asphalt of the highway on top of diesel exhaust and whatever exhaust that's low to the ground at the time of rush hour or whatever time of day. But nevertheless, here is another example of a weather thermometer that's standing right next to asphalt, pavement. Sun is lighting it up all day long. The UV is high. It's biting right now. And thanks to What's Up With That this week, really, for doing a great job for debunking 3 of these Washington Post type weather or record-breaking heating, which has not happened. All 3 locations have been questioned. The one in Scotland was rejected. Also, the one in Africa and LA also should be rejected as well, due to their locations. Anyone that's reporting temperatures from the airport, go ahead and take about 1.5 degrees off of that. They should really just get used to putting these weather stations. It's okay to have the downtown ones, but you need to have some in rural areas. You need to have some in open grass fields or wherever. Off of the rooftops, though. That's the obvious no-no. You don't put temperature sensors on a rooftop next to air-conditioned units that are commercial grade that blow out. I've used to work in the heating and air sector, and I can tell you right now, just on the regular residential, those compressors, they pull off heat. So should be interesting to see, hopefully, more and more of these global warming alarmist stories disappear throughout time, because they're running out of proof. They're running out of reasons to scare people because, well, except when it's cold and snowy, they'll still blame it on global warming. That's the one we got to keep pointing out. That's their excuse for everything that's happening for the last 6 months. They can't explain to their own crowd why, instead of glaciers melting, we're getting record sea ice growth. Instead of Greenland's glacier melting into the Atlantic Ocean, we're seeing 100% snow cover with a depth of 1 meter. And it's affecting mating season for a certain species of birds. Maybe that doesn't affect you, but I'm sure it affects the chain somehow. This other absurd story that I heard was that the Arctic Ocean was going to be consumed by the Atlantic, and that the Atlantic was going to spread north into the Arctic, where there would be no more Arctic Ocean. It would just be the Atlantic in the northern hemisphere, basically. And it's just ridiculous. Here is North Atlantic sea surface temperature. We're still well below baseline at 0.692. She's trying to inch up. She's trying to get a little warmer. But look at the 7-day. Guys, I see way more dark blue, light blue, and white. And remember, white stands for the areas that are unchanged in temperatures. Some areas of the tropics are trying to heat up. Some look cooler. I saw a lot of sensationalism about Chris, and just because of the path that everybody had Chris going on, I mean, these waters right here should be way warmer than what they are right now. And I knew once Chris got past Maine that he would flutter out. And it did. Now it's going to miss Iceland altogether, thankfully. So this storm just becomes, hopefully, doesn't affect anybody at this point. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. Nothing really going on right now. Nothing weather-wise to speak of, other than your typical showers and thunderstorms, your summertime patterns. Nothing prominent or severe that I saw in the forecast. Several weather channels, AccuWeather, Weather Nation, Weather Channel, all reporting, it's a quiet one. Other than your chance for showers, it doesn't look heavy in the lower 48. Nothing developing in the tropics, nothing in the Atlantic, other than the remnants of Chris pushing out. And just a steady chance of, now it is monsoon season over there in the southwest, and Arizona and New Mexico and Utah. I've seen some heavy rain, so it's well needed over there. So it'll be interesting to monitor the drought situation by the end of next week, and going out into Futurecast here, looking at mid next week. The Northeast, we've been dry for quite some time. We finally get a little bit of rain on Wednesday, the 18th of July, before that front pushes off back out into the middle Atlantic. Once again, the Midwest, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee Valley will see a chance of showers by next weekend, before the Northeast once again may have a chance for some scattered showers for the weekend of the 20th and the 22nd. And a lot could happen between now and then. But again, we started off the winter, of course, lots of precipitation. The springtime, we had lots of precipitation. And honestly, I thought, going to May into June, it wasn't letting up. And here in July, the end of June, we've seen limited showers. It's starting to affect the lawns, that's for sure. A lot more grass looks to be brown more than it was green before. So we'll keep our eyes on the weather, but right now, nothing really pressing to go over. The North Atlantic, no new alerts for any kind of hurricanes that we've seen yet. Taking it through this last run here on the GFS, so I'll let it run through. Mari, how's everybody doing tonight in the chat?
Rob is doing an excellent job entertaining people in the chat. I'm a little sluggish. I think I had too much sugar. I'm like on sugar overload from all the birthday festivities, Jake. So I don't know. I feel groggy and tired. I'm not keeping up well in the chat.
No problem. Tonight, forgive me, folks, if I sound a little off as well. It's been busy. Having a birthday for a little 8-year-old girl has been definitely a busy last couple days. But one more thing I wanted to add before we leave tonight's broadcast. Judah Cohen had posted on Twitter earlier today and earlier last week that July will not be cooler, but just more seasonable temperatures for the northwestern part of Europe. And then, of course, the northeastern part of the United States will see more like seasonal type weather. And also interesting to look at the GFS going past next weekend has a good amount of precipitation hitting to the Midwest, to the East Coast, to the Northeast. It looks like several chances of heavy rain showers towards the end of the month. Perhaps that might also be part of the reason why we will stay cooler and more seasonable than record high. So July is still young. It's been hot for most of us. It is the middle of the summer, but we will have our high points and low points. And it'll be interesting to see how we finish out July and going into August. All right, well, that's going to do it for us tonight. We appreciate you guys tuning in to a late edition. Again, happy birthday to Lily, and thank you very much. You did an awesome job on the intro tonight. Guys, we want to thank everyone for tuning in, our mods for showing up tonight, and hanging out with us for this late edition of the Grand Solar Minimum News. We will talk soon, guys. Tomorrow night we will be with Henrik at 6:30 Eastern Time. Till then, we'll see you tomorrow night.